When it comes to AI, I love this because everybody I've talked to tells me their situation is unique, but when I put all the situation across, they're not unique. They're all the same. And we're probably all of us dealing with the same problems. You may have a unique customer, I get that. You may have a unique project, I get that. But from what are we facing out there? Everybody's the same. And yeah, there is a slight nuances in terms of what makes it different for you. But in general, as an industry, as a Canadian Language Industry Association and our members, I feel like it is the same challenge that we're all being faced with here, and they're not much different. So, and I love this because then, you would encourage, I would assume you encourage participants in this case to share openly and honestly about their situation because, again, you're not different than anybody else. You're faced with the same challenges. You're using a TMS, you have a customer, and you're processing translation, and your customers are using AI, and guess what? You have to figure out too, where do you fit in that equation? If you tell me your customers are not using AI, you're either behind the wheel somewhere, not feeling what's going on. Your customers are using AI. Trust me, they are using AI. It doesn't matter which customer they are. And if somebody tells me that they're not allowed, because I'm sure somebody's going to come in and say, well, they're not allowed to use AI. Trust me, they are using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things about this course is that every week they touch up on a new subject, and I think that gives the participants 1 week time to play with that in their actual business operations and processes, and then come back and say, hey, I did this, and this is this was my pain point, or this is where I ran into trouble. And I think that continuity of having a course and then having a week to play with it and to experiment with it and come back and ask more questions, I think that is really a great a great incentive to, so that it's not just a video and you watch it once and it's over. You can actually
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that we talk about in Canada, and specifically when I talked to I interviewed, I guess, the previous, I'm not sure if she's still the current president of OTIAC, Betty Cohen, but when I interviewed her on the podcast, she talks a lot about, the what do you call it, the public safety nature of that association, meaning that, texts and content need to be reviewed by professional translators certified by OTIAC to make sure it doesn't impact the health and safety of the public. And so what we're talking about here is when we're talking about AI in the Canadian context, we should, for the audience that is we should make sure that we're understanding this correctly. It is impacted inside the process within a quality system versus replacing everything else. How do you fit AI in your process versus, AI is going to replace everybody? No. And another one too, which is still a joke around, is, translators' productivity. I know translators are going to hate me right now, right? So translator productivity has been measured in Canada, but for decades by 15 to 2,000 words per day, 1,500 to 2,000 words per day. Guess what? I don't know if that works anymore. I don't know if this is a possibility anymore. With all the tools that you've got at your disposal, Mr. or Mrs. Translator, you should be able to harness the power of these tools to allow you to be more productive. If you're a freelancer, imagine this. I mean, instead of doing 1,800 words a day, there is a possibility that you could probably do 10,000 words a day. I'm not exaggerating. I've seen those. But you've got to harness the power of the technology and see where the technology fits in your content type, subject, and the process. Am I correct there, Kim?
100%. There still is a bit of a trust issue with, and so the language service, for me, the language service company, I'm getting the translators on board that they can trust AI. On the other hand, I've seen the mistakes myself. I've seen the hallucinations, as they like to call the errors. So the trust still has to be built. Yes, they can definitely go higher than 1,500 to 2,000 words a day. But you're right, they have to learn to harness it, and they have to learn how to harness it correctly. And our clients expect us to use AI responsibly as well. There's security protocols that have to be in place. Confidentiality has to be taken into consideration. There's a lot of things that come into play with AI. As well, there's a push now to actually identify texts that have had AI used. Although I think that's kind of redundant because I think just about everything is having AI involved in stuff. If not the English, then the French or the other language, whatever the target language is. So I think maybe that might just go by the wayside, identifying text, because I think everything's been touched by AI now.